Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Blade Bias. I wanted to do another quote-unquote useless ramble where I ask you to pick a side. And I was thinking, actually, I used to do this a little bit back in the day. If you remember 2 apartments ago, I did the blank or blank let's discuss series. And by series, I mean, I think I only did 2 or 3 of them. But there was bushings or bearings, let's discuss. I think there were a few others channel or sandwich or something like that. And I thought, why not bring it back? Because I need a way to engagement bait you guys into commenting on these videos. Kidding, of course. Only partially. Mostly a joke, though. Eh? Comment? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to engagement farm like that. But I will engagement farm like this. Choose a side. Oil or no oil. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about people who run stainless steel washers where if they don't oil their balisong, they're quite literally damaging it in a pretty substantial way as time goes on. But for those of you that do choose, for those of you that has phosphorus bronze washers, or for maybe those of you who don't care as much about the actual upkeep of your balisong, do you prefer the feel and the flipping characteristics of no oil or oil? Because I was thinking about this with my Stitch V2 here. It got to the point where it was pretty dry and rattly, and it just wasn't as much fun to flip as I had been previously having with it. So I grabbed my bottle of carbon honey and I threw a few drops of oil in the pivots, and it instantly solidified up, felt a lot more solid. It didn't feel as rattly, and it just felt more fun to flip. It sounded better. It just felt overall more solid. But the thing is that it also, you might hear that and you think, oh, well, that sounds like only good things. Why wouldn't you oil it then? Because the flipping dynamics of it actually did change. When you have oil in your balisong, it's kind of a slower experience. And this is something that I've realized in recent years that I kind of wish I didn't. I wish I didn't feel that instant kind of slowing down of the action of the knife after you oil it, because it really does feel a little bit more slower, a little bit more sluggish, if you will. It's something that I don't particularly love. I will find on some of my balisongs that not oiling it does make it flip better. It just feels like it's more agile and it feels faster. Not as much friction is going on there, which is basically what's happening because the oil fills in the gaps and really makes it have a little bit more friction. It makes it a little bit slower for the pivots to actually rotate. And on some balisongs, I prefer that, and on some balisongs, I don't. Some balisongs, I hate the kind of dry, rattly feel. I want them to sound nice. I want them to feel nice. I want them to feel solid. And I don't mind how they flip after I oil them, but some of them I just run dry forever. But having said that, I want to know what you guys think. Do you specifically go out of your way to not oil knives, or do you oil them as much as you can to keep them solid and smooth and maybe not swing as good as they did? But, it also depends on what viscosity of oil you use. I do know that. If you use a very thick oil, like a carbon honey thick, that's definitely going to slow down your knife, but you won't have to oil it as often. Whereas a thin oil, you'll have to oil it far more often, but it doesn't slow it down as much. So if you are an oil person, what's the viscosity that you prefer? I'm a medium guy. I like to be kind of in the middle of both of those. I don't want it to slow my knife down too much, but I don't want to have to reapply it every 5 seconds if I want the knife to be properly lubricated. So that's what I want to know. Pick a side, oil or not oil, and why. And because I'm sure most people are going to say, oh, it depends, kind of like I did in this video. Let's have fun and say that you have to choose a side, okay? You got to choose oil or no oil. Which one do you prefer? I'm not saying you have to do that for the rest of your life. I'm not saying that every knife in your collection has to not be oiled if you choose not oil. But which one do you prefer? Because I personally, while I don't like that kind of slower feeling that oiling balisongs has, What I do like is them feeling more solid and sounding way better. I think for me personally, the enjoyment of that kind of feeling of solidity and just smoothness is worth the downside, very slight downside, but still a downside, of kind of gunking up the action a little bit more than that otherwise would be if it was bone dry. It also just scrapes less, and I think that that's way better. Obviously, there are some knives that I keep completely dry just for the fun of it, like my old Arctic that has like the wonky blade on it and slams the handles together. But by and large, I do prefer to keep my knives oiled just because it has that extra special, it has that premium feeling to it. I think that's the best way to describe it. An oiled knife feels very premium, whereas a non-oiled knife feels very broken in, very rough around the edges. But I know some people like that. I know there are some people who die by the no oil life, and I understand why. So let me know which one you are, and I think that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Later.